System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' inner city left.
This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Today is Monday, May 12th. I am Amin TMK alongside Emoja Lil Tanky Sumler. Emoja, happy Monday. What's going on? How are you?
Barely coughing, man. Spring.
Sick of the BS is what it looks like to me. But let's talk a little bit about May Day, shall we? We've been sort of alluding to it for a few episodes. Was a big conference, lots of world leaders there. One of the big, I think appearances was Ibrahim Traore. Stunting on him. Everybody sort of out and about looking their best, being very respectful, in all these interviews and shaking hands, making decisions, making discussions, looking like a very civil, very
looked like quite a
high society. Looked like a lot of people respecting each other. What were your impressions of the May Day event, and what do you think was done there?
It was grand, bro. I mean, this is what I'm saying. Just as a person who looked at it on the internet, you can see the scope of everything. And you know what it reminded me of? Like, it was just this last week that Trump was like scolding China, like, open your markets. Like, Buick is one of the biggest more Buicks are sold in China than are sold in the United States. You know what I'm saying? Meanwhile, you can't buy a BYD in America at all. And what I was thinking about is, where I'm going with this? That pimp ass Auris, man. That shit looks so tight, bro. That big state car that they drive in Russia. You like a big body, bro. I mean, it looks better than any Maybach. I mean, only the Rolls, I would think, could you even compare to it, right? Like, on a stunt, the way the vehicle looked.
Yeah, V12. And what you said?
Yeah.
He does V12s anymore. That's for pure stuntage.
Why can't I, as an American, if I was the kind of person that had the money, why the American market is not even open to Russian cars? And it's little things like that just kind of blow your mind. Look, not everybody knows it. I came up all around the South, for a good long period of my life. I lived in New Orleans, and man, this little Jew boy loves me a fucking parade, man. I just gotta say. Like, when you grow up and you're looking at Mardi Gras, just weeks and weeks of festivals. Even Chicago has some of the premier. I mean, the Irish Day Parade, man, they really going off, bro. It's quite a lot happening, But there's nothing that's really patriotic because America just can't be honest about any of its wars, I was reminded watching it, they don't call it World War II in Russia. They call it the Great Patriotic War. And when Xi's standing right next to Putin, it reminds you of the memories of old countries. Old countries have old memories. And in the Great Patriotic War, as the Russians say, 20 million Russians died, Soviets at the time, right? Americans don't even realize, Pearl Harbor, tragedy that it is, reminding you Hawaii wasn't even a fucking state at that time. And the people that were hurt the most were Hawaiians, who wouldn't have been hurt at all if they were their own nation like they'd wanted to be for quite some time. But who was hurt? China. 26 million Chinese people died in World War II. What these countries suffered is way more than what we as Americans suffered. And we have the audacity to act like the Americans won World War II. That's just not true. The Russians paid a debt in blood that Americans have never. You'd have to go back to no, that's more than even the Civil War. No war has ever cost 20 million American lives. So that war means something totally different to them. And there was a time that the Americans used to come with them to celebrate that, even in the Cold War. Because what they're celebrating is the defeat of Nazism. It's fascinating to me that this is so vilified now in the West. No matter how you feel about Russia, do you hate more than you hate Nazis? Like, that's where the American establishment is, But China was allied with Russia. And at one time, so were the Americans. Nominally, so were the British. They all had to stand together to say, nominally, Nazis must die. But after the fall of World War II, whereas the Russians were executing these Nazis, and to be fair, the Israelis, right? Give them credit for almost nothing, but you can give them credit for killing a lot of Nazis after the end of World War II. But what did the Americans do? What did the British do? They were kidnapping these dudes and bringing them into the sciences. They were normalizing these guys, much like they're doing with Giuliani right now, and bringing these guys into NATO. That's not what happened with Russia. Russia killed these Nazis. You know what I'm saying? So for like them, I mean, that holiday is a reminder when
it's Operation Paperclip and stuff, right?
Yeah, Project Paperclip. Mm-hmm. Right, and again, I'm sorry. So sometimes I be speaking, I assume everybody know everything, but look, in the comments, man, if y'all ever have questions about something I'm spitting, please put it in there. We're going to find it and we'll try. Now, look, don't turn this into let us do your little book history assignment, World War II. I'm not going to give you my bibliography, but if you have questions about, we'll hit y'all with those. But yeah, so that was Project Paperclip, and then, without that, even lots of those Nazi military, the leadership class were normalized and brought right into the NATO infrastructure. A lot of them have been NATO secretary generals. I mean, that's not a powerless position, and so, yeah, those were my thoughts. The last thing I will say is I was blown by how many world leaders showed up and which world leaders showed up, right? Once again, it felt very geopolitically mafioso in that way, right? Like you said, Traore's up there, big old handsome ass, muscly ass, right? He the world leader. And who hated that shit the most had to be Zelensky. This Negro. Because he really he making that
racism's off the charts.
Off the charts, man. I saw some people I did not expect to see. I did not expect to see Cece. But, that goes into, more and more, they want to be part of BRICS. They're trying to lead. They're acting nominally like they have an interest in pivoting. They're buying Chinese airplanes, which, and we'll probably get into a little bit later, the world is coming to find are pretty goddamn good in battles. Without China having fired a single shot, the world is coming to learn of what fourth generation Chinese planes can do. So more on that later. I saw Abbas, right? That tripped me out. You got time for this shit, Abbas? Really?
Yeah.
With all the things that are going on in the world?
I think it kind of goes to this thing of, and you mentioned this, like when Russia and the Americans started talking again, like there is this idea that just having some sort of representative there is useful and it matters, like there's some sort of, like just a reason why communication matters, because it's for the world to see, we're acknowledging that because Abbas is here, that we have, we're reaching out for, for the Palestinians, if you will. And maybe that could be why he's there.
And I just want to remind the average American that Abbas hasn't won an election since George W. Bush. Like, Mahmoud Abbas won in the same elections that Hamas won in Gaza. And that was, fuck, the Iraq war was still a hot war. So, like, I guess shit like that emboldens people like Zelensky. Like, fuck it, man, nobody will ask too many questions. And just call me president forever. That's my name now,
There's only so much diplomacy you can even have with, like, an organization like Hamas, just because who are they going to send? Israel's going to kill them. Like, there's no ambassador that they could send. So I think when you're looking at it in terms of, representation, that could be a reason. I think, another thing is It's just a coalition of people that are saying, hey, like, we don't want to be pushed around by the West. Like, we're not interested. We would like to do business. We would like to have legitimate, grown up negotiations, because that's what we do. Like, these BRIC nations here, these nations that are here during May Day, we like to negotiate and do win-win business transactions and cultural transactions. Watching Putin and Traore, this morning, just like, hey, we're going to pay for 30 of your best students. They're going to bring them around. We're going to, give them a scholarship to the top schools. Those are just small enough things to sort of build rapport between countries. And I think this is what, if you remember I think it was General Langley. I don't know if that's what was his name, but he was talking about the reasons why they needed money, why they needed more funds, or what was the reasoning for the funds that they needed in places like Burkina Faso. And one of the points he was saying was they needed money to be able to combat the narrative, or combat the deals. Essentially, he was saying combat the deals that the Russians were getting. And now we're seeing what that means. Well, we're worried they're going to be captured by the Russian Federation. And you can say the same thing for China. They're worried about being captured by the Chinese market. This is another thing that's happening in Africa. And it just goes to, and we've been discussing that, people are like, why do they have to align with Russia? Why do they have to align with China? Do you think you can go at it alone against places like the United States, places like France, places that always have gloves off and are ready to do whatever statecraft they possibly can to win? No, you have to pick an ally. And I think if people respect Traore, which he's right now he's that Thomas Sankara type of popularity. If you respect Traore and what he's doing, ask yourself, where's he going? Is he going to the White House? No, he's going to Moscow to talk to Putin and be there during May Day. So I think people who always push back on us with Russia can kind of see what's happening, and which goes to back to what we want to talk about, is like how the West does business, which is constantly bring non-starters to the forefront. We were talking a little bit about this, and just again, Putin is saying he wants to have talks. Even Zelensky saying, hey, we want to have a truce, or whatever it may be. My question is, if the United States and Zelensky don't have only bring non-starters to negotiations, is that a negotiation? Because that's not what BRICS is doing. That's not what Russia's doing.
Yeah. The thing that I think people are emotionally reacting to when we talk about these nations deal with these nations is whether or not you like globalism exists, right? Very few nations in the world can be self-sufficient. Like China can almost be self-sufficient, but they're not self-sufficient in energy. It's a huge liability for them. Russia's almost independent. However, they're kind of underpopulated. You know what I'm saying? Their economy is not as vast as it could be, and they're forced to buy some, right? The United States is definitely not. There was probably a time when the United States could rely off of its own resources, right? So if you don't want to be self-reliant, or it's not possible, you have to deal with other nations to help you meet your national goals. When you look at a country like Russia or China or the United States, you're looking at three of probably the only countries in the world that can provide you anything that you might need. You might need to import meat. China can do it. Russia can do it. Whatever the meat is, America can do it. Medicine, China can do it. America can do it. Russia, not so much. Military technology, China can do it. America can do it. Russia can do it. And they're all going to, you see what I'm saying? So like, if you're not a country that has the money or the expertise to build a tank, you're going to buy a tank. If the Americans won't sell you a tank, and you need tanks, you're gonna buy them from someone that can make them really well, and that's how you understand someone like Traore. That's how you understand how nations are like, oh wow, they're doing business with China. Yeah, because they be losing money trying to reinvent the wheel to make a tank that'll never be as good as an American tank, a Chinese tank, or a Russian tank. You know what I'm saying?
It's hard enough to make a car, which they're doing. Don't you see? That's about what a country can handle right now.
Right.
We can make an electric car, but making a tank and making weaponry, that's very different than making, a commercial car that, you might sell 1,000 of or whatever it is, instead of, yeah. No, I mean, and I think that in general, people are, and you can, I think you were talking about it a little earlier. Is America's weapons the best? Because when we're putting them in the field and they're actually doing what they're supposed to be, you're not supposed to be doing, but they are being put in the field to do what they were created to do, they're not as effective as maybe Russian weaponry or Chinese weaponry. And it's not only just what America has, but it's other countries buying Western weapons that are losing, places like India. And again, I think people just have to ask themselves, who are your allies? I can't live by myself. I can't live, at least when people live by themselves, but you can't just do it by yourself. We couldn't do this channel just one person. There's no way. And it's not just us two. There's so many other people that contribute, including our patrons. And it's the only way that you can build things. That's what a nation state is like. We say these leaders are going there, but it's more than just the leaders that are running the country. People have to answer to a lot of different people in their country. So again, these are just approximates. You can just go off what you see what the leaders are doing. And what's Donald Trump doing? What's Emmanuel Macron and Keir Starmer doing? On a little train. Like, these are the things. I don't know if you saw that. We did talk a little bit about it. There's cocaine. There's a debate on whether it's cocaine or not. I am not saying that I'm a professional, but I am saying I have some knowledge of this, but there was a little spoon there. Did you see this? You're muted right now, and I totally understand why. You're not trying to implicate yourself.
Macron said he wasn't sure if it was cocaine. He had to smell it and find out.
Oh my!
I'm kidding.
Yeah. There's a lot of talks about whether it was like a piece of tissue.
Cocaine. Come on. And it goes back to the excess and decadence of the West, right? This could be such a fucking better or at least different society if you didn't necessarily possibly throw everybody else. I tell you what, I wouldn't have wanted to be Tyrone Biggums on a fucking train and the press walk in with cameras ablazing. Wasn't there a certain black governor and mayor in D.C. had certainly
was set up.
Lost his whole political career.
Off of that, right? Yeah, but people get to walk around just like he slid it right under his arm. Just I'm gonna be so slick. Nah, bruh. And we see the spoon too. A little, you know what it is. How they do it? Yeah, and this is what the Western leaders are doing. And look, whether you want to believe it or not, this ain't the first evidence. And Zelensky, we've been talking about this for a while. There's all kind of documentation, or at least video of, Macron doing an interview, and he looks like, Oscar De La Hoya at the fight night. He just
and Zelensky. Every time you see Zelensky tweaking his nose, as we say,
these leaders are under the influence. How about Kamala? They're under the influence of
drawing off the martinis, man. Fucking 3 bellinis to the wind.
Auntie out here embarrassing everybody. But this is the decline of the West, and they wonder why they send these negotiators to places with these with trying to do business, and people are looking at them like they're crazy. And this is again, we can add in all the tariffs, all the ridiculous demands. I think people just look at look at America and the West and just go, y'all just being unreasonable.
Yeah, one of the things I also thought was quite interesting at the May Day, just to bring it back to that, was who all was there, but who sat with who, right? Like, all them people was there, but Xi and Putin, I'm talking about they arm in arm like we carrying the world, like right next to each other, right? Meanwhile, you had people that was there that just seemed to never be in pictures together. I was trying so hard to find a picture of Maduro and Lula, who were both definitely there, and I never seen them in one photo together, right? And that goes to show, once again, there's lingering resentments. I don't know if it's on Venezuela's side or Brazil's side, about them not being allowed into the BRICS. When you start to look at that and look at where the weak links lie in BRICS, India has already shown itself with its, over exaggerated military posture as it relates to what's happening in the Hindu Kush. 25 people died. Okay, and that's a tragedy. How many people are going to die in war, though? Right? Definitely more than 25, right? What's it already cost you? 5 fighter jets blown out the sky as you ran into that mighty dragon. That, what was it? Not the mighty dragon, the J-10, which is a 4th generation Chinese plane. It's confirmed. The scuttlebutt, right? Because India is denying everything. Is that 3 of their Rafales planes were shot out of the sky by J-10s from China, which is a 4th generation. That's not even their new stuff. It's 2 generations back. And it blew the Rafales, which are French fighter jets made by Dassault, blew them out of the sky for more than 100 miles away. Some say as far away as 130 miles away. This is a dogfight that happened beyond visual range. It's not that Top Gun shit where you see, oh, it's the big, it's the F-14, and they fly. No, none of that. All of this is happening on radars. You don't even see them. They show up on your machine and you press a button and someone dies. And China's weapons, which Pakistan chose to buy because the Americans wouldn't sell them weapons. See how it comes all the way back, right? Are defeating the Western Russian weapons. And people around the world are starting to see the efficacy of the Chinese military machine already, and the Chinese military hasn't even fired a shot. Just on the rumors of this alone, stock prices of Dassault have went down 6%. Stock prices of Chengdu, the makers of the J-10, have went up over 17%. Like, these are not, this isn't like just an aberration. People are starting to see military tech, every part of the Chinese economy is viable. Every type of Chinese product is viable. And that changes the whole calculus on a lot of things. You asked earlier, what is the good of American weaponry? And I say this, American weaponry is extremely good at killing. It's good at killing people. But it's not always good at defense, and here's why. First off, it's the audacity to assume that you would be engaging an American product in a theater of war, which most nations just don't have the courage to do, because it would mean being destroyed and possibly nuked, right? Russia's not afraid. So now American weapons are being faced with weapons that put them on defensive footings, right? That's what's happening. France's that plane was considered one of the marquee planes that European military industry sell. The Rafale is considered state of the art for 4th generation. And they're getting wiped off the map before they're even in visual range. Like, their stuff is just not competitive. And it costs more and it does less. And it comes with more conditions. American arms comes with huge conditions. We're going to need to we're only going to give you these sets of package. We're going to make sure that Israel has a qualitative technological advantage. If you're within 1,000 miles, you understand all of the maintenance contracts will be done by American workers, right? Like, you never get a chance to make it part of your natural industry. And that's if they'll even sell you. Also, we're gonna have to we're gonna watch your elections. We're just gonna review, make sure everything, the democracy goes away that we want. You know what I'm saying? Chinese weapons come with far, far less strings attached. And Russians as well, although Russia's comes with a certain sort of reputation. Like, when you see someone at AK, it's like, oh, you're kind of against the United States. It's the liberal mind, right? Whereas an AR-15 is freedom. Russia is still a little right. You don't get any of that baggage with Chinese weapons. And that's what Pakistan invested in. All made possible through things like the BRICS alliance. But we're starting to see the limits of what it can handle. If India and Pakistan continue to go on this route, that's a very dangerous thing. And if relations further deteriorate between Venezuela and Brazil, that's a dangerous thing.
Yeah. Lots more updates to come, I'm sure. Your weekly, dose of geopolitics. There you go. I want to give a shout out to our podcast listeners. We're available everywhere you find podcasts, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, so on and so forth. Rate us 5 stars. I think we have like a rating of 4.8, which is, I think, good because that means that someone was hating on us, because why would you hate on us? We're talking that good stuff. Maybe it was an op out there and he was like, I don't like this. They're spot on. So I'm going to say like a 4.8. That's pretty good. It's higher than a lot of Uber ratings, right? Anyway, that was my attempt at a joke. Hit us up on our website, innercityleft.com. We're also available on Patreon, patreon.com/innercityleft. We have music out as always. You can always just type our name into whatever music service you utilize, Fables, Foibles, and Other American Sins, right behind me on Inner City Left. Go ahead and check it out. Anything I missed? Tanky, final thoughts?
Nah, man, we out there living, but just remember, stay frosty, baby.
For Mojo Tanky Summer, I am Amin TMK. This is the Inner City Left broadcast. Peace.
System riding to the core. Yeah. Reppin' Inner City Left.